Hi, everyone. Welcome to DBT 102, our second DBT training video in the Nest webinar training series. We'll take about 10 minutes today to dive into some more stuff about DBT. Okay, let's do a quick review. Dialectical behavior therapy was created to help people with emotional dysregulation and those people that make their life more difficult because of the behavior that they demonstrate when they are dysregulated. All of the residents are in the nest because their lives have led them here. Many different circumstances, many different types of backgrounds, but there does seem to be a common theme that although they didn't create all of their own problems in any way, behavior that they have chosen to take in response to their problems because it really seemed like the best choice in that moment has ultimately made their life more difficult. DBT is made up of seeing a therapist and attending a group. And remember, it's not like what we think of as traditional group therapy. This is a group where we learn skills. It's very educationally based. And we're always trying to walk this line, this balancing act in DBT between building this relationship where they know that we believe in them and are not going to judge them, we validate them, and having that relationship so strong that we're able to push them towards change when the moment is right. So that change doesn't come off as you've been messing up and you need to get your act together. And the change comes through as we are in this together. How can we do things differently this time so that your life is easier? We are going to talk about the DBT assumptions today. So this is the new material. DBT has these seven assumptions, and we take these leaps of faith in believing these things, even when it's difficult to believe, in order to know that DBT is going to work when it's difficult and when people don't behave in a way that is going to make their life easier. We have to take these assumptions, and the clients, the residents, have to take these assumptions. So here they are. Everybody is doing the best that they can. Every one of us, in every decision that we've ever made, we are just doing the best that we can. I really do take this to a bit of an extreme personally. People that are using hard drugs, people that are hurting others, people that are making all types of decisions that it might be really easy to judge. Guess what? For them, in that moment, that was the absolute best option that they have. And believing that in your heart helps to put in perspective when we don't understand others' behaviors, which happens quite a bit. Sometimes it's hard to put ourselves in other people's shoes. But if we go on faith that they're doing the best that they can, even when we can't put ourselves in their shoes, it brings us that much closer to being with the person, to validating them. Everyone does want to improve in their life. Improve might look very different to different people, but they're all trying to get to a point of more comfort and less discomfort in their life. The third assumption is that we have to learn skills in all these different areas of our life. It's one thing to talk about a skill in DBT group. It's another thing to apply it when you're arguing with your roommate, to apply it when the residential coordinator has told you something that you don't want to hear, and so on and so on and so forth. When your boss is giving you a hard time over coming in late. So that's a really important role for residential aides, because we want you to reinforce what they learn in DBT skills group in their day-to-day living circumstances, their day-to-day living situations that they get into. That's why you're going to be learning some of the skills. Next is that, given everything that we've just said, that everyone is doing the best that they can, they want to improve, all of that, we all still need to do better, try harder, and be more motivated for change. That means you, that means me, that means the residents. We can all do better. We can all be more dedicated. We can all be more proactive and effective in moving our lives in the direction that we want to move them in. No one that is living is in a place where they do not need to improve in some way. Or what is life worth living if there is not something to work towards? The following assumption is that we haven't caused our own problems, or many of them. We do cause some of them, but we certainly don't cause all of them. No one causes themselves to be abused, to be raised in a really crappy foster care system, to be surrounded by drugs and addiction. No one causes those things in their life. It is still our job to solve these problems for ourselves, even when we didn't cause the problems ourselves. Again, if we want to get out of pain or in a state where there's less pain, it's our job to solve these problems. All behavior is caused by something, which leads to the last assumption, which is figuring out that something always works out better than judging and blaming and just in general being negative towards the behavior. That's another really important one for you to take in, mull over when you see behaviors that are making their lives harder, that are making your job harder, perhaps. Figuring out the cause is going to be much more effective for your workday, your work life. And it's going to be much more effective for this individual too, the resident, than judging, than blaming, than that question of like, why would you do that? That's very different than what happens that made you think that that was going to be what would solve the problem. What happens that led to that? I really want you guys to focus in on skills need to be learned in all areas of life, and figuring out the causes of behaviors work better than judging and blaming. All of these are really important. Those two are, top of the list for your job as a residential aide. So briefly, some other reasons why it's really important for you to take these leaps of faith and believe these assumptions. You're going to see behaviors that do not make sense to you. You're going to see behaviors and you are going to ask yourself and maybe your peers out loud, why the heck would that happen? Why would they do that? And taking in these assumptions of, well, I have no idea why, but what I do know is that he's trying the best that he can. It brings you to a place of peace and not fighting it, but of accepting it. You also want to try to maintain the relationships with the residents through these times when you may not understand their behavior. And the assumptions are going to help you do that. They're going to help you remain positive towards people when their behavior may be less than effective in your life and in their life. So I am not saying that you're going to be warm and fuzzy and validating erratic behavior in any way, but you will still be able to be with them as they are as a human being, despite their behavior, when you take these leaps of faith with these assumptions. It's also, let's be real, going to help you if you take these assumptions towards your coworkers and everyone that you're surrounded with, because we don't always understand our coworkers' behaviors either. Finally, it's really important for you to take these leaps because they help us to gain self-awareness. Whenever you're pushing back against an assumption, that is a red flag that there is some personal exploration and some insight that can be gained from that pushing back, from that fighting on an assumption. Maybe you can understand going out late at night and staying out for a few days, and you can understand talking back to staff, but you can't understand the person that goes out and gets high and comes in and they're disruptive and kind of rambunctious in the house. That might be something that is a red flag. If everyone else is doing the best that they can, but you can't wrap your head around that assumption for this situation, it's time to dive into that. It's time to take a look. And that really leads me to the recognizing your own biases. So we have to recognize these biases. We have to dive in when we are pushing back against the assumptions in order for us to know where we are really strong, know where we are going to need backup, to acknowledge where our trauma is so we don't respond to situations that are based on our past experiences. We need to respond to situations based on what is going on right now, right here. We're trying to break any cycles that no longer serve us. We're trying to break the cycles that are keeping us in a place of pain, or more pain than we need to be. This is, although not an incredible amount of information, it's deep information because it's information that will bring you to self-exploration. And that's the most important piece of today's presentation. I appreciate you guys for listening, and you will definitely be working on this type of self-exploration work to one degree on it or another with your supervisor and as a team, but really it's going to be within yourself and up to you to do this hard work. Thanks, everybody. See you in the next training.